You're listening to a Roddenberry podcast.
Well, I just got back from the holodeck battling a rock monster god alien, and boy are my arms tired. It's Monday night, it's 7 Pacific, 10 Eastern, and it must be Mission Log Live. I'm John Champion.
And I'm Ashley Victoria Robinson. Tonight, it's time to go once more into the holodeck of the Cerritos. It's Crisis Point 2, Paradoxus. You know, the one where Boimler finds out what happens to Boimler and has an existential crisis. So
that's so heartbreaking. Were you, well, I mean, we'll obviously get into it, but I mean, I was not expecting dramatic turns like that. How are you doing, Ashley? How's your week been?
It's been really good. Back from New York Comic Con. COVID-free. We are living our best lives. As the resident Boimler hater, also lover, this was a really interesting episode for me to go on this emotional journey with him. And I think you and I are going to have some good stuff to talk about. Also, I know this is one of your favorite tropes here, is just Easter eggs galore this episode.
But handled in a very interesting and different way. So I cannot wait to talk about that. I tell you what, why don't you tell everybody how to reach us, and then we'll say hi to everybody in the chat.
Oh, that's good, because they're the most important part. We're just the pretty faces here. As I said, I'm looking right at you.
Speak for yourself.
You are the most important part of the show. Don't listen to John. And we do want to hear from you, so please click on the Zoom meeting link. We love Zoom. She's a good place to be. Use the one tap on your smartphone or call us at 669-900-6833. Enter the meeting code, and our esteemed Earl of the Green Room will let you in. I'll let you chat with us tonight about what is happening with the crew of the Cerritos, because it's a lot.
There is a lot happening. I love how you can fit so much into about 22 minutes. Let's say hi to everybody who is waiting in the chat. By the way, just to let everybody know a little behind the scenes thing here, I have a different type of chat window now that lets me see everybody on every platform, whether you're on Facebook or YouTube or Twitch, so I can actually see all of you. And BC, Brian, I see you there shouting a la Moraine. How dare you? How dare you? Right here in my face, right here in front of everybody. But let's say hi to some other folks. There's two Pauls, dos Pauls. We have Paul Harveth and Paul Wright checking in. We have Evelyn. We have Dr. Dawson. The doctor is in. We have John Arminio. He says, the joy of Mission Log is the only MacGuffin I need. So I love that. We've got Carrie saying hello from a chilly Chicago. I remember those days well. We've got Carlos saying hello, friends and frequent flyers. There's Ryan. Let's see. There's David, probably another David at some point. We got Alan saying, join us on our epic quest to discover the way to Misanla. I get what you've done there. Let's see. So a lot of folks checking in. There's Brandon. There's Gary. There's Gary has a very long comment. I might just have to save it from when we get into the chat. There's Cosmo. So many people saying hi. So welcome to all of you. A pleasure to have you here. And do what Ashley recommended, meaning click on the thing or pick up the thing and dial the thing and talk to us, because we're friendly. We want to talk to you. So yeah, give us a shout. Let all of you know what's happening in the world of Mission Log, so you know what to check into this week. All right, this week on your regular Mission Log, coverage of Voyager continues Thursday with Alliances, the one where politics makes for some strange bedfellows when one side tries to murder the other. Mission Log Engaged posted some new episodes last week. There will be more coming, so remember to send us your comments and questions so we can put those into our YouTube show, Mission Log Engage. Let's see. What do we have up right now? Let's see. Command Style and Coffee. We're looking at Janeway's Command Style. We have questions about Neelix and Kes, i.e., what were they thinking? Yeah. So you're not not a fan? Yeah, it's a little...
it's a little tainted through the long lens of history, but I do think they do Kes dirty in a number of different ways.
I think so. Maybe at the end of season 3, you should come on as a special guest on our supplemental, and we should just look back.
Please, I would love
that. That would be fun. Okay, all right, mark your calendars. Mission Log Prodigy, I'm so happy that will be back on, I believe, November 1st. So that you're very excited. And I know Norman is excited. Norman in Discord today was saying that he might buy a PlayStation 2 just to buy the Star Trek Prodigy game. Mm-hmm. Or is it a Switch? It was one of those things. One of those. I can't remember. But all the games. Prodigy comes back on October 27th. So then, Ashley, you and Norman will be reviewing that. Mm-hmm. And be sure, anybody in the sound of our voices tonight, make sure that you start watching on October 27th. Watch with your kids and then have them send us a voice memo so we can hear what they think about the show. That's what it's all about. Remember, all of that content and more is on the Roddenberry Entertainment channel at YouTube, youtube.com/Roddenberry Entertainment. And you can pick up all the podcasts at podcast.roddenberry.com. Now, Ashley, we didn't do a poll this week. I apologize, but I was very entertained at the peanut hamper poll last week. I imagine that was a little more divisive than this week. So, we'll see.
It'll be interesting, these polls going forward, because I can barely read them. We can barely remember to get them up. People love them. So I'm excited to see what we get up to next week. Also next week's episode.
All right. Okay. Can't wait. Well, I tell you what, then let me get right into the recap for tonight's episode. I feel like there is so much to discuss. So bear with me. Here we go. The Cerritos is taking a beating from a Romulan warbird while its agents sneak on board and steal a valuable device, the chronogami that folds time. Just as it looks like all hope is lost, the USS Wayfarer swoops in to save the day with Captain Bucephalus Dagger in command. Who? It's Boimler in his very own holodeck story. Aided by his friends, he's called away by Commander Ransom and returns seemingly deflated. But he gets back into the story, which now takes the gang to a Starfleet temporal research lab on Europa. That's where the chronogami was developed, and Captain Dagger's old flame has a way to track it. That leads to the next sequence on Tatashore 9. Most of the crew are immediately engaged in a chase with the Romulans who stole the device, but Dagger, Boimler, is distracted when one of the colorful local alien characters suggests something important to be found at a place called Kit-Yi-Ha. It frustrates Mariner to miss the action scene, but Boimler seems to be on a more existential quest, a journey that could take them to discover the meaning of life itself. While Tendi, Rutherford, Hollow Freeman, Hollow Tana, and Hollow Ransom and Hollow Shax follow the Romulans through a time fold into the past, 2341 to be exact, Boimler obsesses over a side character with a skin map, to Kit-Yi-Ha. A frustrated Mariner steps out of the simulation to confer with Ransom and get to the bottom of the real issue. Ransom told Boimler just this morning that his transporter clone on the Titan died in a freak accident, a gas leak in his quarters. Mariner returns to the holodeck only to be thrown into the brig of a transport ship with Boimler. He's depressed. The map didn't lead anywhere, so his game is a bust. His friends are on a different adventure, and now Mariner asks about losing William. Boimler admits that it hit him hard that his clone died senselessly. He's ready to quit his own game, but Mariner discourages him. She found meaning in her game, and he can find it in this one. They carry on, with the help of side character Knick-Knack, who breaks them out of the brig. When the three arrive on the bridge, it's the old man with the skin map, again, who is in command. But Boimler and his friends quickly gain the upper hand. The map does indeed lead to the legendary Kit-Yi-Ha, which is where they will head next. Back to the other team. They've bounced around time where the Romulans are plotting to prevent the foundation of the Federation itself, and Rutherford's just not taking any of this seriously at all. They lose Holotana to a disruptor blast along the way, and it becomes clear that Tendi is taking this very seriously as a test of her command skills. Rutherford encourages her, and with a renewed resolve, she rewinds the timeline back to the bridge of the Cerritos, where she foils the Romulan plan right from the start. Meanwhile, Boimler and Rutherford arrive at the third moon of Shadonari in search of Kit-Yi-Ha. They find an alien godlike rock creature who just spouts cheesy aphorisms when confronted by Boimler about the meaning of life. It frustrates Boimler to no end, who just starts physically attacking the being, which reveals a look inside the beast. It's Kit-Yi-Ha. I got it wrong completely. It's Kit-Yi-Ha itself. It's just a monument to the Wright brothers' first flight, which makes no sense whatsoever. Boimler's search for meaning is a failure. He falls to the ground, passes out, and wakes up at a farm. Captain Kirk's farm? Well, no, now it's occupied by Captain Sulu, who gives Boimler a few words of advice. The randomness of death is merely a reflection of the unexpected joys we find in life. Boimler starts to quiz his hero more, but this part of the story isn't part of the holodeck simulation. Boimler was clinically dead, dehydrated after too long in the holodeck, and was revived by Dr. Tana. In sickbay, he hears about the adventure his friends had, and Mariner lets them know that Boimler beat up a god. All in all, it was a good sequel to Crisis Point, and no cliffhanger in sight. Cut to somewhere else. William Boimler is woken up by a shadowy figure and handed a badge representing Section 31. The end.
The most pointed trolling of the producers of New Trek.
Yes.
In this one badge.
Yes.
Because the black badge is really cool. I love it. It's a great visual language, but like really intelligent observation, like do CIA, I don't know, whatever America's version of a mildly secret service, wear a badge that denotes their rank. Do CSIS agents? That's the one that I know. No, they don't. But also we know that the Section 31 show has been in the ether for a really long time. And it is wild to me that both Disco and Lower Decks now have been like, you know what, we can do this too, and we did it first.
Yes. So, and you know what I love is that, okay, we got introduced to the whole black badge thing in Discovery season 2, right? I believe, yeah. Okay, so we're talking 2018 into 2019, just as Lower Decks is like in production and getting rolling, you know, but they've already, obviously they had already written their scripts for season 1, and now is the sweet spot where modern Trek is all sort of converging so they can refer to each other. Like, I'm almost more excited about that bit of trolling than I am about the fact that we will have live action Lower Decks in Strange New Worlds. Like, this is just so cool to me. Yeah. Like, I love this. I
love it. I appreciate it, but it feels pointed in a way that a lot of the other references, because we're referencing, like, we've got Archer. We're going deep in the movies here. In a way that we're used to the quick and fast list, John's favorite trope of all time. And this is a much more in-depth exploration of this, and then to sort of end with this pointed barb and Easter egg from within the new Trek continuity, I thought was really smart, but it's very like, it feels very Mike McMahon, very Lower Decksy to me.
Yeah. By the way, did you do what I did? And in that last scene where they're in the Federation Hall, I freeze framed and I was like, ooh, yeah, they're wearing those blue Enterprise uniforms.
100%. I'm also obsessed with the marriage of the Cerritos uniforms and the Deep Space Nine grays, which are my all-time favorite stars. Like, they're two of my favorite uniforms, and they had a baby in this episode, and I can't wait to see them in real life.
Yes. Oh, and by the way, there's an Andorian in that freeze frame, a tiny, tiny little Andorian at the table in that Federation.
Beautiful.
They are. All right. So much to say. Let's get to our first call. Let's let them drive for a little while, shall we? Okay, let us welcome back to the show, Chris. Chris, welcome. How are you doing tonight?
Hey, good to see you guys. Good to be back. Yeah, I liked this week. I didn't like it as much as some of the other stuff this season, nor as much as the first movie episode, but it was still good. I don't know, it just wasn't grabbing me as much as some of the other stuff has.
Why? So why is that? Is it? Did you feel a disconnect with the story itself, or was it the dramatic turns? Go a little deeper. Tell me a little more.
I felt like we shifted the balance a little bit too much into like the joke and the parody side this week. Like the first movie episode, it was very much this is a Mariner character study, like wrapped in a very loose veil of not any one particular movie, but just the movie tropes in general. And we had a lot of, Mariner time. And this week, which you can argue is either a Boimler episode or a Tendi episode, you don't get a lot of them until like the last 4 or 5 minutes. And I would have liked some of that character stuff to be stretched out a little more, is all.
Interesting. By the way, and because I am checking in on the chat, couple of things here. By the way, David, very impressive to see you both in Facebook and Twitch, because now I can see the whole thing, and YouTube. Wow, you have them all. So I'm just very pleased that technically this worked out on my end and didn't kick Earl out of doing his job for the show. So this is actually, for once, all the technology is working. Don't jinx it. But I do want to bring up, we will have him as our next caller, but Dr. Dawson says, Tawny Newsome replied to his question about the what is this alien of the week BS, that line, that it was probably a Tawny ad lib. So that is very cool to know that a little ad lib made it into the show. And of course, David pointing out Tatashore 9, where do they think of these names? So
it's so funny. I went and saw a variety show to Comedy Club in LA on Saturday night, and Tawny was one of the surprise guests.
No way.
I also think it's interesting with Chris's reactions and criticisms of this episode, because one of my thoughts when the episode initially started was this very much feels like season 1 Mariner. She's very at Boimler the whole time. And it's not until later, after I think my favorite scene she's ever had with Ransom. I really liked that scene where they were just together for that brief chat that they've been having. That she understands the width and breadth of the situation and then kind of goes back to becoming the better friend that we've watched her evolve to. And I do think that Rutherford kind of falls by the wayside in that same way in the Tendi arc.
You think that Rutherford is just sort of, it's like a perfunctory thing just to move her along?
And he's just irritating and picking at her. And we sort of excuse that at the end because he's like, no, this is like super fun, happy time. Like we're chilling on the holodeck playing this game. And I didn't realize you were taking it seriously. Like he, in the same way that Mariner doesn't realize that there's something lying underneath. But because it takes so long into the episode for both of them to land in that space, I can see how... Like, I was dissatisfied with that until I had seen the full episode. And then, obviously, John and I watched it a bunch of times.
Right. Yeah.
Talk on the show.
Yeah. Well, essentially, you have to give everybody, this is the challenge that, and it's why I'm not a TV writer, that you have to give every character that you're focused on in an episode an arc, but then you also have to give them season-long and or series-long arcs as well. And I think what you're pointing out here is something like, okay, you have to rewind Mariner a little bit in order to get her sensitivity toward what's happening with Boimler to play, to give her a place to go,
In this episode, her functionality is to push him to that point so that he has this growth moment and we as the audience have this realization. But I just meant that I could see if you might feel dissatisfied beginning with this. There's a weird tone at the beginning of the episode, even though we know it's a sequel and it's like, ooh, sequel, fun times.
Right. Is that the feeling, Chris?
Little bit, yeah. I think also some of it is, and you were kind of alluding to that in like how people play their roles, is like, I feel like they wanted to set up the reveal of, oh, William died, and oh, the reveal that Tendi wants to be captain. And because to make that a reveal, you have to not tell the audience that until late in the game. And so you spend most of the episode being like, well, what's the deal with Rutherford? I mean, it is just a movie. Cut him some slack, Tendi. Like, you don't know why she's so angry, and it takes a while to sort of... And once you get there, you're like, oh, okay, this makes sense. But yeah, long way to get to something interesting.
Right. I getcha. Well, I tell you, anything else, because we do have a handful of callers. Apparently it is Hollywood Squares in the Earl Green Room tonight.
Ooh.
I know, right? Yeah.
Who's in the middle?
Yeah. Well, Paul Lind, obviously.
I want to be Paul Lind.
So, any other thoughts tonight, Chris?
No, I mean there were some good jokes. I liked Rutherford's over enthusiasm at 1992 CGI. That's always a good callback. And Knick Knack in general. Love Knick Knack.
Future cosplay?
Future
that's
cosplay
more like
of
prosthetics than it is yarn, so I don't know about that.
Is it little Knick Knack or a kick-ass Knick Knack? Because I loved that reveal. Also, look, as a Bond fan, when I hear Knick Knack, I immediately think of Hervé Villechaize in The Man with the Golden Gun. That was just where my mind went. So, don't know if it was anybody else, but that's fine if it wasn't. It's okay. Yeah. Chris, thank you so much for calling in, and we'll talk to you again soon, okay?
All right. See you around.
Take it easy. Have a good night. Couple other comments here. I just want to see what folks are saying. And these multiple chats now, I have the power of being able to read everybody's chat, and I'm loving that.
You're basically an energy being from early Roddenberry track.
like a rock monster energy being who is just solely invested in chat conversations. Let's see here. I thought Evelyn says, I thought Mariner was being like that at first, mostly because Boimler was piggybacking on her crisis point thing. Sure. Although, it was kind of a weird choice at first. She was being so supportive, like right there in the game. And then there was a very quick turn to not be as supportive. Like tonally, that felt strange, but it was over so fast. And we just got to the heart of the story so fast. I didn't really worry too much about that, Dave Takechi says, I really loved the Space Station Regular One computer monitor. It brought back many wonderful memories of programming basic language on my Texas Instruments computer plugged into my floor TV made of wood.
Yeah. We all know you made it spell boobs.
That's what you do. Of course, that's what you do. Yes, that whole sequence in the lab, all the computers that looked like Regular One, the costumes looked like Regular One costumes, and the most important prop in the entire galaxy, right there front and center. You cut to that lab, and there's the blinky, flashy red light thing right in front. I texted Mike Mullen, director of this episode today, and I said, that was brilliant. It was incredible. And he goes, that's just because I put the blinky, flashy red light thing in front, right? I said it was pretty...
Also, humble brag, texting directors.
And look, by the way, friend of the show, welcome to call back at any time that he wants. I didn't necessarily invite him explicitly to tonight's conversation because, look, I didn't want it to be too obsequious. I'm gonna share something with you all right now.
It's obsequious sorrow, my lord.
Using big words, right? I think this is my favorite individual episode of Lower Decks so far. Ooh. Yeah. I think there are other episodes that have favorite moments. I think there are other collections of episodes that have favorite sequences or arcs that we get to, but just taken on its own, this one hit all the sweet spots for me. And we can get into why as we move along.
Tweet at Mission Log Pod.
Right. You know the score. All right. Let us move on to our next caller, and that is the doctor himself, Dr. Dawson. How you doing tonight?
I'm well, John. Thanks for having me, as usual.
Good to see you hanging out with your best friends. Your best friends. You got Commander Ransom, the bartender, Nurse, I forget his name, Nurse Westlake, and but you got Matt the whale.
Yeah, I will always hang out with Matt the whale. I mean,
of course.
That's the thing.
But
talk about Taj Dronine,
yes,
Nurse Westlake of the composer, Chris Westlake.
Nice. Yes.
So nice to see some on-screen time. Well, on-screen time for some of the behind-the-scenes people here.
So many inside references. Crazy. Yeah. What else?
I just thought this episode was full of, and this was crazy in the chat, it was full of references from the movies.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So there's not, you're not going back too much into the series, but there's so much from 2 and 5 and
well, 2, 5. You could, with the time travel, you could say 4, and even that opening graphics, a very motion picture style that they had in there. Which I think all makes a lot of sense because, of course, it is the Cerritos crew in a movie. They're like, it was a weird thing to refer to it in universe as a movie. Like, I think that most of the time when we've had our Star Trek characters in the holodeck, they've referred to it as the holodeck or a holodeck story or a holodeck simulation or a holonovel, as we got in Voyager. But they haven't actually referred to themselves ever, other than Lower Decks, as being in a movie. So, yeah.
And Mariner says, what is this, some kind of crappy fan fiction? So...
If it was my fan fiction, there'd be a lot more kissing, so don't drag it.
Okay. Primarily between Tendi and Rutherford, right?
That's right.
That's
they
right.
have beautiful babies, that's all I'm saying.
Nice. But I think, so, Doctor, what you are getting at here is actually one of the reasons that this has ascended to the top of my list of favorite individual episodes, and that is that there are a ton of references in this episode, but they didn't do what drives me insane, which is they didn't stop and explain the joke. They just did the joke, they did the reference, and then they moved on. And that was it. And the thing that always drove me crazy with previous episodes of Lower Decks is like something would happen, and then inevitably Mariner or somebody would say, oh, it was like that thing that Kirk did, or it was like that thing that Spock did, But instead, like, you get to the big reveal, Kit Yee Ha, right? And it's just this huge letdown, and Boimler says, that doesn't even make sense. And then we're just done, right? He passes out and we're done. Had this been written differently, had this been written like earlier episodes of Lower Decks, I feel like they would have stopped and he would have said, at least V'ger made sense, blah, 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 and you would have explained, you would have telegraphed the joke to the audience. This, it moved along at that fast pace, you hit the references, and then you move on. And that is all I ever asked out of Lower Decks. So thank you to whomever was the story editor on this one, the script editor.
Clearly watching Mission Log.
You nailed it. Yes. David, by the way, and hold that thought, Doctor. David says, this episode truly breaks the mold for poking fun at its own franchise in such a deep cut way. Some of it only apparent to those of us in the con scene, like the fan film line and the jab at the JJ films. Yes.
The Kelvinverse is all over this episode. There are so many Kelvinverse references, the bikes, Tendi basically says it and drags the entire Kelvinverse, which is kind of a reference to when they were mentioning the disco.
Yes.
It's eggs, it's Easter eggs on eggs on eggs on eggs on eggs on eggs.
It's just eggs all the way down.
Yeah. That's all over the place.
I love it.
I almost wonder if the writers went into the writing room for this and says and literally said, we're gonna make a fan fiction movie. Because that's what it is. It's if I'm me and I have watched every episode of Star Trek ever made at least 20 times each.
How many times?
Right. And so, we're gonna pull this. If I was gonna make a movie, sure, we're gonna pull this in and we're gonna pull that in because those were the cool things. But it was fan fiction, so it's disjointed.
Yes.
It just goes from, let's pull this Wrath of Khan scene. Oh, in the regular lab. Oh, wait, now we're on a mountaintop somewhere.
Right.
And riding bikes and
almost in a way like dragging Picard for doing the punk scene. I mean, and realize that these are probably written very separately just because of the timing of production. But just by reference to did you get the punk scene? There were punks there. Oh, it was absolutely perfect in the way that played out.
Yeah, and I just realized when you said that, Rutherford made a bad French accent, like
yes,
the pre-cloud when they're on pre-cloud.
And
Picard has the eye patch on, and he's like, "I'm the French guy."
Right.
So that's cool. And the other Picard reference I thought was for the Romulan trio. Mm-hmm. I thought they used the Commodore O Romulan look,
her style,
as opposed
doing a hand gesture nobody can see with the design of the uniform. You mean?
Well, even the face structure, rather than like the Romulan commander from Enterprise Incident or Troy when Troy was on the Romulan ship, and those commanders, like this was the Romulans in this universe are the Picard era.
Yeah,
Romulans.
I happen to really like the symmetry of the Romulan triplets with the streaks in their hair lined up the way that this is great. Excellent art direction.
Stepford Cuckoos, if anyone hears an X-Men reader.
Oh, very good. Hey, Doctor, we got to split just because we have many more callers lined up, and we'll need to do a break in a moment. So we will say goodnight to you and catch you next time, okay?
See you next time.
All right, till next time. Bye. Hey, before we go to our break, let's take one more call, shall we? Because it's Alan, and he's there hanging out with the Cerritos gang. So, what's up, Alan? By the way, Alan, hey. I thought of you when that last scene was, location redacted. that
was of course, so yes. Hold on.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm there too.
Yes. Awesome.
That's a deep cut for the Discord crowd.
Yes. What is on your mind tonight about the show?
Oh boy, guys, this was a good one. I just wanted, first of all, to sort of piggyback and echo, John, some of the things you were saying about how the humor works in this episode specifically compared to previous Lower Decks, and maybe take it one step further in that it's not just hey, we got this specific reference to Star Trek, but it is a Star Trek-esque thing that we're getting. Yes. Like, it's not the Duras sisters again. It's the Romulan triplets. It's, right. Why wouldn't Star Trek have an algae crisis?
Right.
I think that's brilliant and, wonderful. And it's sort of like, okay, we're making jokes not just about Star Trek itself, but how Star Trek-y we can make this show. And it's just really lovely. And I will say, I thought of you when the blinky red light prop came up. So there you go, right back at you.
Thank you.
I was like, this is going to make people very happy. Me included.
Yeah. No, it's very interesting that we're in total 28 episodes into Lower Decks, right?
That's wild.
Yeah, we're 28 episodes in, and to me, I'm glad I'm not the only one kind of saying this. There was something very different here that felt like, there were the references, but it was actually a Star Trek story about Star Trek stories. And that also was about fandom, et cetera. But it was about Star Trek stories. And that's what really worked for me, as opposed to just being like a list of references. We had those too, but I think they were handled much more deftly here. So,
yeah. It was really sort of just kind of nice how it all sort of came together. And I think that there were definitely some times when I was like, if this was a full live action length episode, we would get more depth out of what's going, why Rutherford and Tendi seem to be at odds, like Ashley, like you were saying earlier. Because on a level that did sort of bug me, But then again, I could really identify with both of them in that scene, because I'm a person who, when I'm playing like D&D or an RPG or something like that, I both want to be really into the story like Tendi was, but also am blown away by how bleeping cool and fun it can be, like Rutherford was. Right. And just in general, MVP of the movie right here. This girl.
Yeah, well, and you know what? We were talking not that long ago about who has that aspiration to be a captain, who has the aspiration to go up through the command line, and she just announces it in this episode. Pretty great.
Yeah, I feel like this is, another sign, a good sign for the writing is that this does feel like sort of a culmination of something that has been building for the last 3 or 4, at least, episodes. Especially since, I think maybe in season 2 when she first was like, I could be a nurse for the rest of my career, or I could, find some other way of advancement. So yeah, just really good for her. And, the Mariner ransom scene I felt was sort of like a nice, continuation of the arc that they've been going on this season too. So, just overall, I don't want to take up too much time, but yeah, I don't know. I can't necessarily say best or, top 10 or top 5 or anything like that. But man, just really good, really fun all the way through.
Nice. All right. Well, Alan, thank you so much. We'll see you next time. Take care. Thank you for the call.
And enjoy the commercials. Maybe Rutherford will pop by and try to get us to drink some orange juice or something.
Very good.
That's so funny every time. I mean, good for you.
Every time. See you later.
Awesome. Bye. See ya. Well, yeah, speaking of commercials, it is that time. We're kind of mid-show, maybe running a little bit long, but hey, there's a lot to talk about. Let me just remind everybody that patreon.com/missionlog, that is your way to get early access to our shows. It is your way to get exclusive swag that is only for the Patreon community. And most importantly, okay, our Discord is going nuts. Our Discord is absolutely blowing up. There's a lot of chat there about pretty much any fandom under the sun. But then something happened. Norman and I started talking and realizing, wait, all these people are doing all this live content using that platform, and it's great. Of course, there's Mission Log After Dark. That's where we get together every week, and we talked about the current episode of Mission Log. But guess what? It keeps growing. There's the Orville. So every Wednesday, if you want to do a watch through and talk about it with Captain Mike, you can do that. We've got Stargate Sundays that Norman has been hosting Sunday mornings. We've got Con Tiki Wednesday nights, and that's there for people who want to talk about conventions and real life get-togethers and make plans. I know that I'm missing some, but this is the perfect segue as I remind you to go to patreon.com/missionlog, pick the support tier that's right for you. My favorite, the thing that we have just now launched and kind of made part of the Discord family, Twilight Zone. We're doing Twilight Zone chat live in Discord, and you can join it with the host of Time Enough Pod, and that would be Matthew, who incidentally is our next caller. So, I know, right? It's like we planned it, but we didn't. So, to join us, patreon.com/missionlog. I see you, Mike. I see you being clever in the chat there. You know what you're doing. Wednesday afternoons, doing your live chat about the Orville. Join us, patreon.com/missionlog. And with that, let's get right to our next caller, who I already told you is Matthew from Time Enough Pod. Matthew, welcome to the show.
Hello. It's lucky for me. I can call into Mission Log Live like twice a year. This is one of those times.
Yeah.
I had that thought. I was like, what time is it?
Right.
Yeah. It's my vacation week. It's great. So,
nice.
Hi, Ashley, as well.
Welcome.
We had the first one of those chats this Monday. I'm now tasked to track down the Japanese-only CD releases of the original series soundtrack. It was released on vinyl in the States, but only on CD in Japan. So
wow,
no pressure.
The next one will be your October 30th, but my October 31st. So I'm going to show up in costume for that one. So,
nice, right excellent, very cool.
As for this episode, I just made like a couple talking points because there's a lot of people behind me. 2 are stupid. One is maybe smart. So
I thought you were the people behind you were stupid for a second. It's like, you'll just drag that.
And I got 3 points. One, I'll posit a poll question for you.
Okay, great.
This is that Will Boimler sport a goatee next appearance. Option A being full mirror Spock. Option B being smooth as an android's behind. So.
Oh, okay, nice. I'm going android behind, but that's okay. This is one vote. Okay. What else you got?
I'm betting probably the goatee, especially if they're going to be appearing close together.
I really want the goatee. That's my vote. One non-Trek reference in this episode. We already went ooh about the skin map, but both times we saw it, I was totally thinking of the Mad Magazine fold-in cover.
Yep. Same.
So
yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Just making sure I was, it was so disgusting. I was like, but there's something there. Is that it?
Yeah. And carry on, because the body type on that thing was very much like a weird loose skin alien from. Oh gosh, there's an 80s sci-fi movie, and the name of it is just on the tip of my tongue. But carry on. I will find it.
It's got Doctor Who vibes too. It reminds me of Cassandra, like moisturize me.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Right. Yes.
Now the thing that really got me in this episode that I liked was Boimler deciding to, in his existential crisis, basically deciding to search for a ghost in the machine, like trying to get the universe to talk to him directly. Like he's so, he's such. I mean, nobody else has a problem where their exact clone has died stupidly. I mean, that's not what happened, of course, but that's what seemed to have happened in the episode. So that's what he's thinking. Yeah. And I thought it was interesting that he's like almost like trying to, take a religious leap into the machine, which I thought was interesting.
See that, like if we were doing the full mission log discussion about this, which I think for this episode could be a few hours long, to be quite honest, like this is one of those points where you've got a player character talking to the computer, because, the holodeck is a computer, but talking to the computer, trying to work out this very heavy idea about the nature of existence. And that is really incredible stuff. Like, that is pretty awesome. By the way, just because I know that you're all so worried about this, and I don't want you to lose any sleep over it, the movie I'm thinking of is Space Hunter: Adventures in the Forbidden Zone from 1983, starring an up-and-coming Molly Ringwald. So that is the movie I'm thinking of that has weird, disgusting aliens with all their skin hanging around. That's the one. There you go. Yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome for that visual.
You might have a shadow memory of that on a VHS shelf somewhere in the 80s.
Right. That is excellent stuff, Matthew. Did we cover all the points there?
Just that point without. I'll keep it very vague as to not do any spoilers, but I felt like the Orville novella kind of hits some of the same concepts of following the machine. So it's just cool. We're getting some cross philosophical sci-fi in our gullets these days. And if anyone does read that, it stands up. It should have been an episode. So
interesting. Well, and if anybody hasn't downloaded the episode of Mission Log the Orville where Jessica and Mike covered that, please do. So yeah.
Okay, that's what I got. So
Matthew,
I think there's a few more rolling in. So
there
I will talk to you later.
A pleasure. Till next time. All right.
As always.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Take care. Let's just go right to our next caller. Calling from that weird bird planet. It's Rhea.
Hi. Yes, hey. I'm one of the stupid people after Matthew. Thank you.
Sorry, I'm so sorry. No. I saw your reaction and it was everything.
Yeah. I mean, the shoe fits. But
no, we love you.
Yes, we love you.
Good. It's all good.
Welcome.
I love you guys. I'm happy to see you guys.
Yeah, what is on your mind?
I wanted to talk some Easter eggs, but non-Star Trek Easter eggs. And that's like last week. What I really loved about the episode is it reminded me of all those silly cartoons I watched growing up with birds that went caw caw. So
nice.
This week there the non-Star Trek references that I noticed. Now there's one I'm forgetting because I didn't take notes because I'm one of the stupid people. But
we're gonna live this down.
It's all right, I'm okay with that. But the Romulan triplets. So I was getting some G.I. Joe vibes because the Romulan triplets reminded me of Tomax and Zaymot. And the Australian punks were the Dreadnoughts from G.I. Joe, the cartoon series.
Nice.
There's the reference I can't remember, but then the one that I about lost it was, is this heaven? No, it's Idaho. Oh my gosh, that was so funny. I thought of you, Alan. So funny on so many levels. But there was one Star Trek reference, one Easter egg that I haven't heard anyone mention yet. Ooh. And I, of course, would have never picked up on it. But I heard Ben Rogers, one of the writers, was interviewed and he brought this up. Okay, so we had a couple of cool planet names. We had Tatishore 9.
Yep.
We had Shatneria.
Yes.
Do you remember that?
Yep.
Okay. So do you remember in Star Trek V, they had originally wanted Sean Connery to play the role of Sybok. And as part of, the way they were enticing him, the planet was Shakari.
Shakari. Right.
Yes. So apparently Mike McMahon pretty much had to call in all his Cardassian favors to get George Takei on the show, but he was also aiming for Shatner, hence the planet name Shatneria.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. So it isn't just throwing a name at a moon.
No.
There is actually some purpose behind that too. Very cool. I did write down in my notes, so one of my favorite exchanges is between Boimler and Sulu. Captain Kirk, oh my no, it's Captain Sulu. Even better.
I mean, honestly, though.
Yeah, right? I mean, come on. So good.
The horse is going to bite you now.
Yeah, right.
So I want to be woken up all the time.
Oh my gosh. I was kind of like Chris in that, as the episode started, it took me a little bit to get into it. By the time it was not even over, I'm like, this is the best episode ever! And then there was the little cliffhanger at the end, and I was in love. I loved this episode.
Yeah.
The Sulu part might have been the best.
This is one that really benefited definitely from watching more than a couple of times. Because, when I first started it, I felt like, okay, we're doing a holodeck. We're going to make a lot of references. But they nailed the two things. The humor was tempered just right in a way that I liked it, which I know that humor is very subjective. But they also got these character moments, and just specifically with Boimler, to have a real depression about what happened, and have real questions that then land on a very Star Trek kind of moral meaning message. It takes me right back to Star Trek: The Motion Picture. Here's a machine asking about the nature of existence and the meaning of life. But it boils down to something very simple. It's not about all the aphorisms. It's not about just grabbing a meaning. It is about truly finding the meaning in your heart. And I thought it was just great, Yeah, nailed it.
Isn't it crazy the depth that we're getting from cartoons?
Yeah. In this really short time frame, these really short episodes, and they can really stick the landing on it.
In a really specific storytelling style as well, right? It's not just animation, but it's this adult animation that has to serve both the comedy and the drama side of things.
Yes. And by the way, let's talk about how cinematic that was. That opening and seeing the Wayfarer come in, seeing that beautiful Romulan ship, it just looked like $1 million.
Could you believe the graphics?
Oh, incredible. Absolutely incredible.
Next movie.
Yes.
Now we're talking. Out of it.
Yeah, now we're talking.
I was specifically talking about the temporal origami graphics.
the way that is
It looks so good.
In my opinion, such an obvious dig at the unobtainium of it all in the Avatar universe. I was like, the space origami is so silly.
Yes.
It's so perfect.
And I love that the explanation got cut off. That was perfect. Absolutely perfect. Yeah. Ria, we do have Paul standing by as our next caller. Do you have any final thoughts?
Nope, I'll hand it off to the next stupid person.
Oh my God. Ria, take care. A pleasure.
You too.
Bye. All right. Paul, welcome to the show.
I'll try to live up to the hype. As the past two callers have taken all my points. Although I do like the cheesy rock creature reference you have in your, your coverage. I must say that was. I'm not sure if I was relieved or, you watch this thing come out of the ground, and all I can think of is Shatner talking about how he didn't have any special effects and some guy blowing smoke, smoking a cigarette and blowing smoke because he had no funding left.
Yes.
And then Boimler climbs in and he comes, searching for the meaning. And there's a statement. There's always a catch with these God stories that would just hit home, right?
Yeah.
Mariner just goes, there's always a catch with these God stories. And oh God, it was hilarious. But I'm gonna be real brief. Absolutely my favorite was the coming out party for Tendi. Of course, here she is.
Yes.
The action hero flip over the back, crashing the motorcycle.
Oh my God.
And then admitting, yes, I do want to be captain. I think she's going to be the first one to leave the lower decks and move on. And I'm so happy. Just such an incredible amount of material in such a short amount of time. I want to ask Mike how many storyboards there were for this. Think of all the scenes you saw.
LOL.
Yeah. And there's just like hundreds of these. There's probably 100, right? I mean, they had so many scene changes. If this was a movie, it'd be, I don't know, $1 billion to make. They just draw it up,
I feel like this is an episode that we kind of need to do a separate additional interview or discussion about it. And just very briefly in that conversation with Mike earlier, he said, I just said, look, the cinematic look that you nailed by every time you go to the holodeck scenes, that little bit of soft focus, that little bit of grain, dirt, and dust in there, and most brilliantly, and somebody pointed out here in the chat as well, Ryan said it, one of my favorite subtle moments is walking over the letterbox to get out of the holodeck. Absolute genius detail.
Genius.
So
I
perfect.
Have that in my notes. I'm obsessed when they put in the letterboxes or the fake film grain. I think that's so funny. And it's such clever storytelling that doesn't have to be there, but it just makes the world so much richer because it is.
Yes. So good. And then he said that, Brandon, I'm sorry. Well, no, John took a bunch of my points. Sorry, Brandon. You're still going to come on the show. We're going to see you here in a minute. Mike was saying that a lot of that stuff he'd kind of thought of, but then the producers and I guess the animators sort of took it and ran with it. And he was afraid that it might be a little too much, but he kept seeing the content come back and was just absolutely blown away by it. And I don't want to steal his story, but apparently the rock monster was his idea. He drew it up that way and then presented that to Mike McMahon to be part of the show. So
did it give you Val from the Apple vibe at all?
Good call. Yeah. Oh, yes. Or the what was that Mego game called? Escape from. Oh, I can't remember. It was on my list of Star Trek toys to own one day before I die. But they did a weird sort of Feeders of Vol spinoff toy that was not very good in the 70s. So Mission to Gamma 6. That's it. Mission to Gamma 6. Thank you, Earl. Yeah, one day I will have that.
So I'm going to leave you with this. It's like having an original serious character on one of these shows should be like the high point, the really, really big deal. And here it's just subtly blended in towards the end and you go, it's Kirk. Oh no, even better. And it's just of course he's going to be here. And then you just move on to the next thing. Amazing. And Norman's big issue, I mean, he's probably choking on the the Black Ops badge at the end. I'd love to hear his opinion on that. But
yes.
We'll let you get on to John and it's always great to see you too. Always.
Hey, Paul, take care, my friend. Till next time. All right. We got a couple more callers hanging out. We're going to go immediately to John and then Brandon. Hang in there. We're going to get there. We're going to just geek out over the technical look of the holodeck scenes. John Arminio, what is on your mind tonight? Hey.
Thanks for having me on. It's a very busy night for you all, so thank you.
And that's what these great episodes draw out of people. Yeah.
I'm actually a big fan of Ben Rogers, who wrote this episode, and so I'm just over the moon about how much I just love this episode. I do think it's definitely my favorite of the season so far. Might be my favorite of the series.
Wow.
And as many Star Trek movie references as there were, I saw a lot of Star Wars stuff in here too. Like the map on the alien's back was like the dagger in Rise of Skywalker, like a cheap MacGuffin that comes out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And the discussion of a sequel that goes back on a previous movie for no reason. And then the sort of fan anger between the two camps of which sequel is superior and why aren't we with these characters who are having fun? We're in this like very strange, all of a sudden out of nowhere spiritual quest. So for this like 22 to 25 minute show to reference several Star Trek movies, comment on fan discourse, reference Star Wars, and also have character development, like that's some really efficient writing. And there's jokes.
Yeah.
And
it's also very funny. Yeah.
Yeah, it is incredibly dense. And they never belabor any of those points. You just, if you know it, if you know that there's discontent about the Kelvin timeline, they nailed it in just like about 3 lines of dialogue. Just hearing, I believe it's Tendu says, well, scientifically, that's very implausible. But, love that. It was genius. Yeah.
And I really thought what was pretty profound was, Boimler's going through this like crisis and depression. He doesn't know how to deal with his sort of alternate dying. And so he's focusing all of that anguish onto his creative output. And so then his self-worth is equating or being equated with how good this movie is. And coming from like people who write TV for a living, that's a pretty personal statement to acknowledge that like sometimes when we're at our worst, we see our work or art as like our own value. And so for this show to also put in that bit of like self-examination, I thought was pretty impressive and pretty powerful.
Oh man.
I also feel like will credit Boimler, who I love to drag. That is one of the healthier ways that you can deal with your grief. It's not the best, but he could have done so much worse than creating this hollow novel.
Oh,
but like when the art doesn't work, he then takes it as, well, now I'm broken.
Exactly.
And that's not healthy. And so thankfully we have, his friends to help him along.
Right. I feel like we need to have a roundtable about this episode, and we need to have Ben. We need to have both mics. We need to do the whole thing. John, excellent comments. Since we are kind of running out of time here, any final thoughts before we say hi to our last caller?
Just that I love Rutherford saying, well, I'm at least taking the pants. That joke made me laugh so much.
Nice, yeah. A little bit of a like a Terminator reference there as well. It all worked.
Just as if like it's gonna be very quick and easy to take these pants off of this unconscious person.
Right. So good.
Well, thank you all so much.
Take it easy, John.
Me on. You too.
Pleasure to see
Thank
you.
Bye,
by the way. Dr. Dawson in the chat also echoing, did they have to feed Vol? But apparently, yes, they did. And by the way, Carrie's saying, how do we get Walter Koenig in an episode? And the short answer to those, Carlos says, ask nicely. Alan says, pay the man. Both, I think both
pay
legit.
Him whatever he wants. Honestly.
Yes, get him in there. Get him in there. Absolutely. All right, let us welcome our last caller, and I apologize up front for taking. I'm sure only the tip of the iceberg of your very good points. Brandon, welcome to the show. What's on your mind tonight?
Well, thanks, John. I appreciate you apologizing for talking about things on your own show, but I don't think that the apology is entirely necessary.
Fair.
No, I've really liked the discussion that I'm hearing about the episode tonight, and a lot of perspectives I didn't see, because I think that on my first couple watchings, I was like, well, that was good, but I did like the original better, which I love that they just sort of preemptively make fun of everybody saying that. I thought I would sort of just go through a couple like cool things that I noticed that weren't on the list of things that you mentioned. I absolutely loved that they shot for shot recreated. The Wayfarer came in and blocked the shots from the Romulan Warbird in exactly the same camera angle, exactly the same position as the Enterprise E in First Contact.
Yes.
I absolutely loved in the Bazaar. There's just a character in the background saying exposition, just the word exposition.
Wait, is that what are the little aliens in that market?
I don't think he's even on screen. There's just like chatter, and you just hear a person go exposition.
Oh.
I wonder if that was the prompt in the script and someone as a joke
somebody read it.
Submitted a tape. It was like exposition.
Like that old recording from the TV show Hercules where the guy yells disappointed and it was the stage direction.
Yeah.
Best thing Kevin Sorbo ever gave us. You can fight me on Twitter about that.
Yes. Yeah.
And I loved Commander Doodle. I was like, wait, I'm sorry, what? Commander Doodle?
Oh, I want that on a t-shirt for sure.
Yeah. The serious elements of it, because I always do like to try and find that element in these episodes, because I love that Lower Decks is able to do that for us, even as a comedy. I was really touched by Sulu's speech. I thought that was I'm looking at the text of it and I am shocked at how brief it is, but how really beautiful it was, and what a good for everybody who wants to have something meaningful to take away from it. Here it is, and it's nice and it's crystallized, and it's just wow, that's a really beautiful statement. It's up there with one of my other favorite quotes about like grief and loss, is that grief is the price we pay for love. Oh. And I love that, and I love what Sulu said, because they're like almost cousins as statements go. And then I love that Boimler does a Star Trek trope and restates the exact same thing another way. And Sulu just calls him on it right there.
I literally just said that.
And the only time I've seen that like lampshaded that well was in Futurama, when they made fun of it. And they said, somebody always re-explains it and then Fry messes up later. It's something, a balloon.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I loved it.
Oh, and that's the way to take something that is poignant and thoughtful and so very Star Trek, turn it into comedy, but in no way denigrate the message that's there.
Absolutely.
That is a very fine balance that they achieved with that just few seconds on screen.
Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah. So well done.
I think that was really great. And if you'd like, I can offer I don't know what Norm's thoughts are going to be. I bet I can guess maybe, but I have my thoughts on the black badge thing. I loved the joke, and then it got me actually thinking about it. And I wonder if if they really wanted to point to this whole thing is kind of, I think the black badge looks really cool. But I'm remembering it being just on some guy standing guard outside a closet or something in the third episode of Disco. Mm-hmm. And yeah, it's just but why do you have it? And then he's never there again.
Right. Right. Yeah. Fantastic. And I love the line in that little epilogue, or you could still be dead.
Yeah. The delivery of that was great.
So good. I just nailed every frustration that I have with Section 31 in that brief little scene. It was fantastic. Brandon, thank you so much for sticking around and waiting till the very end to share your thoughts with us. I look forward to the next time as well. Have a great night.
Thank you.
All right. Take it
Thanks,
easy,
guys.
my
Take
friend.
care.
See ya. Bye. Ashley, I feel like for you and I know that we both took a lot of notes on this. I mean,
Yes.
did we even scratch the surface on all the things we wanted to say? I don't know.
John, do we ever?
We don't. We don't. That's why there's always more to come, right?
Exactly.
There'll always be more. Well, pleasure to have you here tonight. I look forward to the next time. And with that, Mission Log Live is produced by Roddenberry Entertainment. Technical production on Mission Log and Mission Log Live by the incalcitrant Earl Green. Be sure to visit podcast.roddenberry.com for the latest from Roddenberry Podcasts. If you'd like to support Mission Log directly, give us a look at patreon.com/Mission Log. Thank you, Ashley V. Robinson, for co-hosting this week. Thank you to everyone who joined us live or later. Guess what? We look forward to discussing Lower Deck Season 3, Episode 9 with all of you next week.
This is a Roddenberry podcast. For more great podcasts, visit podcast.roddenberry.com.